Hey everyone, and welcome to another devlog video for the NPC Manager system. Today I'm super excited to show you guys a brand new system I've been working on this week, and that is adding the ability for NPCs to use random one-liners or barks as the player moves around the level. And you'll see this in a lot of games. When you're as a player walking around the crowd, NPCs will just say these one-liners, and this is used for world building. You can say a one-liner based on what's happening in the world, or maybe something about the NPC itself, or maybe something even about the player. So you do have a lot of flexibility on what you want the NPCs to say, and it would be really nice if you can have a easy to use system where you can customize random lines that the NPCs use in addition to the more complex things like the conversation system. So that's what I've been working on. I think it'll go really nicely with the NPC Manager as a standalone, and even better if you also have the procedural city generator, because as you're walking around and you have NPCs walking around the sidewalk, it would be really nice if you can hear some sounds, right, and some random lines. So that is the idea. You can see here I am working right now on the showcase level for this. This is called level barks, and this is supposed to be a little factory environment when you have the NPCs going around the factory and doing various jobs. You can see that we have some stations here, some little cogs. You'll see in a second. So let's go ahead and play it. Keep in mind this is fairly early code. There could be some bugs, so I'm still in the polishing phases, but I wanted to show you guys what I'm going for because I want to get your comments and feedback. So let's go ahead and hit play, and then after we play for a couple of minutes, I want to show you the setup. All right, so let's go ahead and click play here. I'm going to maximize, and I'm going to kind of walk around to show you guys what's happening here. Doing great. How is everyone? They're all doing fine. Good to hear. How goes it? Bye. How goes it? All right. I'm going to try to get another line from Sean. There is a % chance for these NPCs to say their lines. There you go. And look at this one here. Got some nice boxes. So, and you can see that we have some errors that I have to kind of fix here. But here's the main thing. This may look a little chaotic, but hopefully you guys got the general idea. But there's actually a little bit more structure to this. So first of all, what I'm doing is I am using a data table to store all these separate lines. That seems to be a nice way of organizing everything. Very similar to the NPC conversation interaction system. Every line has a specific ID. Then you have some text, a duration, and you can add audio clips just like the NPC interaction system, where you can even have different voice actors within the individual clips. And you can define the NPC having a specific voice ID, and they'll actually say the same line based on their voice ID. Notice though that there's no connection here. These are simply one-liners, and you can add as many as you want. And then something like the NPC, this is the base NPC class, now has a new trigger called a bark trigger. So when the player overlaps this trigger, then you'll hear the bark. And then you have a widget here, which is invisible now, that would display the line. So NPCs basically have, I'm going to just select one here. NPCs have a new component called comp NPC barks. And when I click on the component, you see that we have various options, like whether it's active or not, different bark modes, like use the original bark list, add external barks, use external barks only. You know that you have some things like use the player barks only, ignore the player barks. You can either show display the bark, which is the text, and you can either play the bark, yes or no. These are independent. And finally, you have the % chance to bark or to say the line every time the player overlaps. You also have the option of having a timer where if the player sticks next to the NPC for a long time, you can have the NPC say different lines on a timer frequency. So if the player is going to hang out in an area where the NPCs are always there, maybe you want the NPC to have a different line every 10 seconds or something. And then you have the voice ID. But notice that this is a component that the NPC has that detects all of the different barks that can be out in the world. So this component is basically overlapping all the actors in the world and is grabbing specific bark IDs that are then going to be used for the NPC to say the lines. So that's one component of the system, but then the other component is something like in this column. You can see this is an actual blueprint called bark prop. There's another component called bark tags that then shows which actual IDs will the NPC use when it overlaps this actor here. So what's happening is if one of these NPCs walks near this column here, it'll overlap, it'll detect that it has this component, it'll grab the bark IDs, which in this case is working 1, 2, and 3, and then if the player gets near the NPC when it's in this location, then the NPC will say one of these 3 lines. Working hard or hardly working, eh? Can't wait to get out of here, and my last day before retirement, hope nothing goes wrong today. Because these are the tags that are assigned for this location. But if the NPC goes here to this area, to this little cogs, and gets near this prop here, it'll use the tags for cogs 1 and 2. These are different bark IDs, which then if you go here, you'll notice that it says, do these cogs look okay to you? And do you think we need to call maintenance? And notice that these tags or bark IDs are related to what's happening in the nearby area because you have these cogs that are moving around. Same thing here, this is supposed to be a conveyor belt, and this actor itself has the tags conveyor belt 1 and 2. So when the NPCs go here, and you can see that we have 3 waypoints on purpose here. So when the NPC comes to this waypoint, it'll overlap this actor, grab the tags conveyor belt 1 and 2, and then when the player gets nearby, the NPC will say one of these 2 lines. Production is looking good today, or hope we can meet our quota today. So notice that based on where the NPCs are, they are using different barks. So you can really customize what the NPCs say based on where they are in the world. So the lines are not really random. They can be contextualized based on where the NPC is. Same thing for the stations. I just added the same component, comp_bark tags. And in this case, these 3 stations have the ID station fixing 1 and 2, which again is what you saw earlier. I can't feel my hands and 1 more nail and it's done, versus these stations here, oops, that have station working 1 and 2, which of course are, I'm kind of busy right now and can I get a hand with this? Notice that the station idle says, hey, you can't be here. If you remember from earlier, that is what this station has. That's supposed to be like the manager of the factory, and it has the bark ID station idle. And when you come here, it gives you that message. So the NPCs are using external tags to feel other objects in the world, and they can then modify exactly what they say based on those tags. But you can also have a different bark mode where you can just use the original barks only, and that's when you can define a set of bark IDs here for the NPCs to use. And that is exactly what this red guy does here. So if I go to his bark component, notice that I only have use original barks only, and his barks are going to be hello 1 and 2, which are how goes it and how's everything. So I'm going to play it again, and you'll notice when I get close to the red, no matter where he is in the world, he's always going to use these two tags right here. Compare it to this pink one here, which has slightly different options. This one also has use original barks only, but it has a specific flag saying use player barks only. So there's also a way for the NPCs to detect the player itself and whether the player has tags, and in this case the pink one will only use the player tags. So even though it has these two tags by default, it'll only use the player tags. And in this case, if I go to my BP player blueprint and I click on my bark tags, the player itself has player 1, 2, and 3, which of course are what you saw there. Says hello player, I can tell you are the player, and I can only use your barks for now. So now what you have here is a completely different setup where the blue guys that are going to be spawning from the POI itself, these are the guys that are going to the different stations. They're going to use external barks only, and they're going to ignore the player. Then you have the green ones. These are the ones that are going to the different waypoints that you see here. They are also going to use external barks only, and they're also going to ignore the player. So when the player gets nearby to the greens will not use the IDs player 1, 2, and 3. They will only use the external barks, which are going to be when they overlap to these different environments here, like the conveyor belt, the boxes, and the cogs. But then if I go to the red will only use its original barks, and it's going to be hello 1 and 2, and they can only use these two no matter where they are. And finally the pink, I know it's getting a little complicated here, will only use the player barks because I tagged it this way. So even though at the beginning everything looks really chaotic because everything's in such a small environment, every type of NPC, every color NPC has different settings, and the player itself has different tags, and based on where the NPCs are and their settings, they're going to say different lines. Notice also that they have a % chance to bark or to say the line, and in this case the pink and the red, I made sure that they were always 100%, or no, actually the red is only 75%, the pink is 100%, and the green is 100%, because I want those lines to always fire when the player gets nearby. The other ones only have a 75% chance to appear, which is why you saw me trying to overlap several times to get it. So if I come here to Geralt, you can see, well, in this case, Scott, do you think we need to call maintenance? And this is one of the lines for the conveyor belts. And if we follow him again, I think he's going to the boxes. We got some nice boxes here, and that's because the ID changed because he overlapped the boxes. If I go to Alan here, nothing happened, 75% chance. I'm kind of busy right now. He's using the tags for that specific station. And Mark, again, I'm trying to overlap here. Should have made it all 100%. Hey, you can't be here because those are the tags for that station. If I come here to Scott, hope we can meet our quota today. That tag is used because he's near the conveyor belt. So if I go again to Scott, hope we can meet our quota today. And the pink one, remember, can only use the player tags. So it can says, I can only use your barks for now. If I approach Nathan again, it says hello player. And if I approach again, I can only use your barks for now. So obviously you would want to add a bunch of different tags so it's always random, but notice how he's always responding because he's at 100%. And the red one is only using the original ones, which are the two hello ones. And in this case, it's 75%. And I'm going to overlap again. How's everything? And this guy, Geralt here, working harder, hardly working. Remember, that is one of the working tags on this column. All right. So that is the system of barks. Sounds kind of silly when I say it like that, but that is, I believe, the technical term that game developers use for these lines for NPCs. Hopefully you get the idea. I still need to work on a little bit more polish, but I think I covered all of the different options that I wanted to. Your NPCs can have a set number of lines or barks, and you can set them to always say those lines, kind of like the red one here. They'll always say those lines on a specific percentage. You can have NPCs only talk about the tags that are on the player. So if you want the NPC to comment on the player, say the player got a new piece of gear or something happened, or heck, he doesn't even have any gear on, right? He's naked. You can have the NPCs kind of comment on that. Or you can have the NPCs use external tags, like in this case you see Steven, to give context of based on where the NPC is, they can actually talk about that. And obviously, I forgot to disable. You can see here, I need to debug this part. We don't want the NPCs to be showing their lines where they're doing a conversation. So that's kind of one of the things I have to fix. But yeah, guys, this is it. Hopefully you like where this is going. I think that this has a lot of potential to give you guys a lot of life when you're setting this up correctly in your game. I will probably work on this next week, giving it some more testing and polish. And if you have any ideas of how I can make this better, please do let me know in the comments below. If you haven't joined our Discord, we have a really nice community where we talk a lot more about this. I'm a lot more active there, have a lot more time to do that versus creating videos for YouTube. So if you haven't joined, join, say hello, give me your suggestions, and you can come for help as well. So yeah. What do you guys think? Let me know what you have to say in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in the next video.